Greetings everyone, this is YOUstory podcast. We're doing this podcast under a project called All for Youth and Youth for All. This project is funded by the European Union. But just very shortly about the project, we are trying to empower and enhance the capacity of the civil society that are working for the young people, youth. And we're just trying to make differences and improvement in 4 areas mainly. 1, we want to improve the NGO capacities that are working for the young people. Number 2, we want to improve youth employment and entrepreneurship. Number 3, we want to improve civic engagement of young people in Mongolia. And 4, lastly, we want to improve volunteerism in Mongolia. So thank you for watching this podcast. And this time, this is our 3rd episode of YOUstory podcast. And we have invited Mr. Trajan Christea, the ambassador of the EU delegation to Mongolia. So here we go.
You have to learn, you have to be open-minded, to read a lot, and to really educate yourself. No initiative, no imagination, everything was predefined, predetermined. So you can imagine that it was not that easy. Economic difficulties, almost nothing to eat. Believe in yourself, do what you like, and learn to like what you do.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you for inviting.
Yeah, for accepting our invitation. It's such an honor and privilege to have you here. So let's just dive in right into our podcast. And basically, the YOUstory podcast, we are interested not just about your job in Mongolia, but we really want to tell your story to our viewers, mostly young people, hopefully to inspire you and give you more energy and inspiration. So, could you tell us a bit about yourself and, how do you describe yourself, please?
Well, I describe myself as a simple, regular person at the end of the day. It's just that I have really the honor and the privilege to be here in the country. Actually, I'm for the second time, because first time I was a student in your country.
Oh.
So I graduated the Mongolian State University quite a long time ago. Some of you and your beneficiaries were not even born at that moment, but still I was a student on that difficult years between 1990 and 1995. Secondly, what I could say, maybe I can say that I am the first ever resident European Union ambassador to Mongolia, because this delegation has been physically open in November 2018, and then since then we have a permanent European Union delegation in the country. And last but not least, maybe that we're very much interested in a country like Mongolia. I'm a vegetarian.
Oh, vegetarian in Mongolia, how do you find that?
Actually, it's quite interesting. It's incomparably better than it was 20 some years ago when I was a student.
I see. Well, can you tell us simply what the European Union is and what its mission in Mongolia?
European Union is actually an entity, a political entity. It's a political union of 27 states that started as a peace process after the Second World War. 5 years after the war ended, the 2 main enemies of that war decided to reconcile, and then they gathered together some other countries, 6 founding member states. They put together piece of their own sovereignty to make sure that war will not be possible any longer in the country. Since then, the European Union developed from a community of coal and steel, the main raw materials that were used by the militaries to wage war, to a common market, then after a common market to the political union, to a monetary union, and so on and so on. So it's a free space of good governance, rule of law, democracy, and human rights, where 27 member states are enjoying the 4 main freedoms of the European Union. Freedom of movement of goods, freedom of movement of services, freedom of movement of capital, and freedom of movement of labor. So, in other words, the European Union is a peace project, a peace and prosperity project that brings together 27 member states, and now, all becoming a political union, we endeavor to really project those values abroad by means of a coordinated external action and development policy abroad.
Maybe some of our viewers are wondering, Europe is geographically quite far from Mongolia, and they might be wondering what is the mission of European Union in Mongolia. How would you?
Well, I don't think that we are quite far, I would say, geographically, and all the more so not that far geopolitically. I would rather think that, on the contrary, we are quite close to each other, and that closeness is very much, I would say, felt by the fact there are a lot of people in Mongolia that know Europe very well because they made their studies, they become very high-level experts, they work together with the European Union member states in different types of education, business, research, whatever, name it. As far as the European Union delegation to Mongolia is concerned, its main mission is a little bit sounds very much dry. To implement the partnership and cooperation agreement that exists between Mongolia and the European Union. This, in plain words, in very simple words, it's actually a kind of to bring into life the provision of a legal agreement that exists between our two parties, European Union and Mongolia, in terms of support of resilience of Mongolia in these geopolitical difficult circumstances. We are privileged to be considered the so-called third neighbor of the government, of the people, and of the country here. So what we would like to do is to engage in different areas in supporting democracy, rule of law, economic diversification, youth employment, to support concrete activities meant, as I said, to increase Mongolia's resilience in this environment, and actually to deliver upon the promises that we made when we signed this partnership and cooperation agreement: people-to-people contacts, education, research, innovation, actually environment, connectivity, areas, trade, areas that are actually very much important for our bilateral relations. One single issue for the moment is not covered by this agreement, actually, that's military cooperation. All other areas are covered by this bilateral agreement, and I'm looking very much forward for its own implementation. Last year we celebrated 30 years of our bilateral relations, so that shows that we do not have only relations since we opened the delegation. We have a quite important track record. There were a lot of projects implemented since difficult transition periods of TASIS times. Now Mongolia is a well-established country, so we upgraded our formats of cooperation in a much intense way.
Yeah, well, using this chance, I want to really express my gratitude for what the EU delegation is trying to achieve in Mongolia, especially in the sector of youth empowerment, youth employment, because we're a young democracy, we're a young nation, so it's, I would say very much appreciate what you're doing here, what the EU delegation is doing here, or contributing here. From our side, it's very appreciated, and as a project person who's trying to also help improve the youth development in Mongolia, it's a great deal of assistance, I think. Thank you. I mean, how do you find living and working in Mongolia, I mean, compared to other countries that you've lived before?
Well, I think here I will be very much subjective. I cannot say that it's worse or better, just simply because I was here before. So, Mongolia is part of my soul, so to speak.
Why? Why so?
It's, in a way, coming back home. Coming back in the time to a country that I used to make my studies. And I feel very much comfortable. I have a lot of friends, I have a lot of former colleagues. We build a lot of I would say extended relationships since the European Union delegation was open here. So in a way, for me, being here, it's like coming back to a club where you used to belong before. So I enjoy being here. People are very much nice and friendly. This is nothing new for me. I enjoy that openness and friendship since I was a student. So very much, how should I say, used to live here.
All right.
And I like it.
That's good. Well, as a Mongolian, it's very pleasant to hear that. Yeah, as I said, this YOUstory podcast, we are just basically trying to really inspire young people through different people's story. Either it's a success story, I don't know, lesson learned story. So we want to know more about you. What are you very passionate about?
Well, I guess that will somehow be a bit of a curiosity for your people, because I'm actually passionate about everything I do. But if I want to name some 3 specific passions or hobbies,
All right.
First and foremost is cooking, secondly is running,
Uh-huh.
and thirdly learning. Learning whatever I can have time and interest to learn too, because life generally it's a continual process of learning.
What are you learning right now?
Now,
No.
I am revising my Mongolian writing.
Can you say a sentence in Mongolian?
Yeah, well, I think I can do.
Can you do it now?
Yeah, I can do it, because we are coming closer to the very important Mongolian holiday. I would like to wish everyone Tapuk and Sakan Alare.
Very nice.
I don't know when I'm going to transmit it, but that's a different story.
Oh, don't exclude this part. Like, this is good.
Okay.
So you said cooking and running. I love cooking. I mean, I'm sure people enjoy. I mean, I think I should say I love eating. So, and what do you cook, especially in Mongolia, given, I mean, what we can offer in terms of?
I guess that is not surprising. I'm
Ingredients.
mainly focusing on vegetarian cooking.
Oh,
because
yeah.
I'm vegetarian, so I enjoy going to many vegetarian sports restaurants that are happening here. But definitely, I reserve my rights to enjoy and indulge into things I prepare myself.
I see. Running. I love running. Recently, I've just started running. I mean, why do you enjoy running? I mean, some people, it's a bit of an exhausting process for some people. I mean, what do you feel? How do you feel? Or how do you enjoy, get satisfaction from running?
I think first and foremost, I took it as a kind of a challenge, because until reaching this stage, I will have to increase step by step the distance I was running during the training. Secondly, when you run, you spend a lot of energy, the calories, and since you have a kind of an office activity, sometimes you put on some weight or accumulate some calories. You really need to spend them in a very pleasant way. And last but not least, you oxygenate yourself. You have a huge, I would say, outburst of endorphins, and that makes you happy.
All right, let's not go into the calories bit. Just go to the other ones.
No, they're part of the package.
All right, the next question is, this is my favorite question. What is an event that you'd say that changed your life or shaped your life and made you who you are now?
Well, definitely, looking back, I think that the revolution in Romania in 1989, that was the historical, I would say, very crushing event that changed my life, definitely. At that moment, Romania was a communist country under a very strong dictatorship, and the revolution that happened in 1989 really managed to open the opportunities to unlock the energies of the country. The revolution was mainly done by youth, students. I was a student.
How old were you?
Oh, I was 19 years old.
Okay, I'll do the calculations.
So at that time we went out on the streets, and it was really something that you could not describe as a feeling. We had nothing to lose. We were looking only to our own future, and I guess that this helped us to be very much enthusiastic and why not victorious. So that was the event that shaped the life. It changed the way in which education was organized. It shaped the economic development of the country. Everything changed. And most important, it started or triggered the process of changing the mentality of the people. So I think that was the event that really changed my life.
How were you like before the event, and how did you personally, mind and soul, how did you change or transform after the event?
I guess that is going to be a kind of a PhD research. Well, another one. What I would say, before, you were educated in a spirit, we were educated in a kind of a specific spirit, to behave, to listen. We were not allowed to express our feelings, our energy. We were just tasked to implement this and that. Nothing, no initiative, no imagination. Everything was predefined, predetermined. So you can imagine that it was not that easy. Economic difficulties, almost nothing to eat. It was really a very difficult period in 1989 in my country. So after that, everything changed, I would say, exponentially. There were hundreds and thousands of opportunities that people could grab and to improve their own, evolution in terms of education, in terms of personal development, in terms of the way you contribute to the community and to the society in more aware mode, in a much more increased awareness, not being tasked top down by first secretary of the Communist Party or the regional organization. No, that was not the case any longer.
Well, I think the
so we sensed freedom and we learned freedom.
All right. Similar story also applies to Mongolia as well. Interesting. I want to go back to my next question, but somehow I'm having this feeling that I want to know more. Just what quality of yours have, welcomed that change? I think change is hard. Why did you not stay the same? But instead you embrace the change and you fought for it. So what quality do you think, what quality of yours that, I don't know.
Well, that's a very interesting question. I guess that there were more qualities that really pushes you to adapt to a new reality. But when you see your friends from childhood that are students with you being killed next to you in the revolutionary time, it's a little bit of a difficult situation. So what I think I learned is to be more sympathetic and to be more patient. Yes, it's paradoxically, we were patient until the revolution outbursted outside, but then after we learn to be patient because we come to realize that not everything changes overnight. So you have to take time to put energy to understand the others, to be sympathetic and in solidarity with the others, but you also have to learn how to be patient to achieve this kind of goals.
Interesting. If you could go back in time, would you go? And if you would, what would you change?
I would change nothing. I would go and I do the same.
Well, usually.
Now, I think I will do the same because I think I would know better how to do it.
I see. But from your answer, you're pretty much fulfilled and satisfied with all your choices and how you live.
Yes, I think I was quite happy and lucky.
Oh, that's a wonderful thing to say.
Yeah.
What is the most important thing that you have learned, and how has it changed you?
Learning, it's as I said before, it's a kind of a continuous process. But I think that I learned to be more listening to the others. I think I learned to be a little bit more careful and a little bit more tolerant.
Tolerant.
Yes. This new society came with a lot of, various forms of expressions and different values that are put forward. And if you really want to be successful and to be understood, you have to understand others and to listen to others.
Not the other way around. Okay, good. No, it's a wonderful message. Yeah.
And I also learned that it's important to pursue your goals in life, but it's also important to keep learning and to adapt to the opportunities and the realities that are coming up.
Can you name one skill that you have learned that really saved your life? Not saved your life or made you to success, professionally, personally. For example, I started learning English thanks to good teachers, thanks to my kind parents. I started learning English from an early age, and it opened doors. It opened up possibilities. I think it brought me to where I am. I know it's just one language, but with comes the language. It came the culture, the different mindset, the knowledge of the world, the different culture. I came to understand people and why they act because I learned their language. And I made friends all over the world. So, for example, for me, learning English was a breakthrough. What about you?
An eye-opener.
An eye-opener. And what about you?
Well, foreign languages were quite well studied during the school years in my country. Actually, since the primary school, we started to learn French, and we use that. So, for me, I guess what I learned and that helped me is first to learn to listen carefully and to think logically and to match the resources with the objectives. I think that was a kind of a management, if you want, management of your own personality development. And I think this is something common for everyone. It's a very, I would say, good tool that everyone could use in terms of focusing themselves in your activity. Another thing I learned after revolution, particularly, is that democracy and human rights are a difficult path, but a journey that is worthwhile undertaking, because brings you to another understanding and dimension. And another, I would say, status of your freedom and self-confidence that you don't have in another type of political regime organizations.
I see. You keep mentioning like learning to listen to other people. Well, sometimes it's hard to listen to other people. Sometimes people, I don't know, even if people are talking nonsense, or even if people are talking something against your own value, or something completely different from your own perspective, even so, you listen to them?
If I have time, yes, I do. And if I don't have time, I make time to listen.
What would you gain from that?
Another viewpoint, another perspective.
And with that perspective, what would you?
Well, I guess it helps you to get a better choice. It doesn't mean that listen to them, I have to agree.
That's a very nice thing. You
But
listen
I
to
listen.
them.
I have to listen.
What piece of advice of other people to you have helped you decide your life or future?
Well, that's very complicated. During life, you receive a lot of questions, a lot of advices. How do you know that is the best advisor for you or not? That's a very important question. I think that the most important thing actually is to believe in yourself. But in order to believe in yourself, you have to prepare well. You have to learn, you have to be open-minded, to read a lot, and to really educate yourself. To master, I would say, some skills, to master a job, and to act in a good faith to achieving all these things. Of course, it's always good to do what you like. It's very nice to match your career based on your capabilities and assets. But I guess it is equally important to learn to like what you do, because that increases your adaptability, particularly when you have to work under pressure, to work under stress, to deliver on the short deadlines, when you do not have too much support around and you still have to deliver. So I guess first to believe in yourself, that was one of the advices that really helped me to grow, and then keep learning.
All right. Would you consider yourself a happy person? Do you find what you do rewarding, fulfilling?
Yes, I consider myself a very happy person. I do believe that what I do is very much rewarding, and I can prove that because it's important and very rewarding to see that with some amount of money of the project you make the difference in place and you change something. And I think I'm also considering myself a happy person because I also learn how to see the happy points on what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Not only to do what makes you happy, but also to see the happy points on what you are doing.
Mm-hmm. I was about to ask, what advice do you have for young people, but I think you already...
Well, again, believe in yourself, do what you like, and learn to like what you do.
There you go. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador,
You're
for
welcome.
joining us. I think you covered a lot of very deeply touching and very interesting points in our talk. And thank you very much for watching YOUstory podcast. Basically, this is the end of our podcast. I hope you all liked it. If you have comments and questions, go ahead, share with us. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.